Alright everybody, welcome to Kerbal Space Program Space Odyssey, or Interstellar Odyssey. One of the two. Either way, I attempt to get Kerbals to the deepest reaches of the Kerbal system. Now, you're probably wondering, how in the heck did I find myself on this part of YouTube to come across this type of video? Well, sir, I assure you, and or madam, of course, could be sirs and or madams. But this series consists of me sending Kerbals, like I said, into the depths of the Kerbal system, and it's also my attempt to establish myself in the KSP universe, or the realm, or the forums, or the subreddit, whatever you want to call it, whatever your scale of measurement is on the internet. I am wanting to attempt to put myself on the ranks with Hawk Gaming, Scott Manley, and the other astrophysicists, masters, the magicians who do their work, and I admire them greatly for what they've taught me about Kerbal Space Program from my early days of dwelling with rockets and then sending up finned planes that were hopelessly misguided. However, now we are doing something completely new, this being Space Odyssey or Interstellar Odyssey. I'm not sure which one sounds better. They are both some pretty brilliant sounding names, if I do say so myself. Completely original as far as I know. I don't believe I'm infringing anyone's rights. If I am, I apologize. Please don't sue. If there's one thing an early space program doesn't need, it's to be sued. Now, what makes this series different than, say, somebody else who's doing typical .23 career mode is I have mods. Yes, that's right. I have mods in which I have power. And mods are power, especially as you can see right here with these KW Rocketry, what are these called? These solid rocket boosters, these SRBs. These things are really good with the sounds. I don't know if you heard the sound when I first launched these up. We'll be sending up several of these guys, these first manned launches into orbit and the outer realms of Kerbal. However, the sounds on these guys, they are fantastic. It sounds like you're firing a gun that has multiple chambers. You just hear a boom, and then they're off, and these solid rocket boosters do their job. However, since we are in career mode, we have to unlock our parts like a good Jebediah. I believe that's the pilot right here. What I was trying to do with these first launches was vary who I put in them. Usually when I do a career mode, or when I was just doing my private career mode, my world called Werner von Kerman, I was just sending Jebediah for most of these missions, and I failed to recognize it until I looked back and said, oh my goodness, I have 5 moon landings, all of which have been conducted by Jebediah Kerman. I bet Bill, Bob, and all the rest in the Kerman family are feeling quite jealous right now. Perhaps a plot to remove Jebediah from office may be afoot. So, to avoid that in this space program, other known as Interstellar Odyssey, I have shaken up the bit. I have rattled the cage. I have now taken my hands and dove them right into the depths of the management of Kerbal Space Program. So, in other words, I know the guy who schedules the launches, and I say, hey, maybe Bob should give it a go. I know he doesn't have the courage, but he sure does have the stupidity. Let's just lock him in that Mark II can and see what happens. Well, I guess so. And that is how these launches go. So these first launches here are quite brutesque. They're quite austere, whatever you want to call them. Rudimentary is probably the best word. That being, we just have basic decouplers and the goo canister, and other than that, doing crew reports from the surface of the launch pad or on the edges of the Kerbals or Kerbin's atmosphere. That's how we're getting our our science very quickly. Perhaps silence could have worked. I mean, we're kind of in the space, not a whole lot of sound, and you know, sometimes light is quite in disparity as well, so I guess I salvaged that one quite alright. So this is probably the flight where we go the highest before we do the moon landings. However, when I tried to do a series of this earlier on, one that was much more stereotypical, like KSP number 4, let's go to Duna type of thing, I wanted to vary it up a little, make the titles a bit better, and the thumbnails even better. So for these first few launches, we're just doing our basic science get together. Now, unfortunately, with this first few episodes, probably just the first one right here, the one you're seeing right now, the mods that I'm using will be in very short use. Those being that I have currently right now, as of recording this, I have Remote Tech 2 KW Rocketry. I don't know if I have KSP Interstellar quite yet. I have the visual enhancements. I do not have Ferrum Aerospace initiated or activated or installed, rather. No Deadly Reentry quite yet. However, I do have quite a lot of plans for mods I would like to put in here. However, with my first first few launches I attempted to do, I would have this error where as soon as I would launch up, I would have this issue to where the launch pad would be immediately zoomed out. You would hear the launching up rocket sound. However, all you'd be doing is seeing quite a lot of space and not a whole lot of launching rockets. I don't know if any of you have had this error before, but it was happening to me when I installed certain mods like Remote Tech, so I tried to isolate the mod that was having the issue, update it the best I can, or tamper with the save file, and then come back in and say, "Hello everyone, welcome back. I have corrected the error and your eyes will no longer be voluptuously disturbed by my modded misadventures." So yes, now that we fixed all those errors, we're back once again. And the deadly reentry right here would have definitely killed us, which is why I'm putting all of my efforts in the very first episodes of this space program, the first launches, are into the depths of the gravity well of Kerbin before we hit the moon. So just making it simple, getting all the science from the different biomes and the outer reaches of Kerbin, coming back and spending it on some much needed snacks, because more so than engines and more so than solid rocket boosters, we need snacks to stock these cabins, because soon enough we'll be going out on year-long missions out to where else? What's a year-long mission? I know Jewel is pretty much a year-long mission. You usually arrive there around, if you do your maneuvering correctly, you get there around 365 days, and that is not providing a mid-course correction. That's just a straight escape from Kerbin, and then you do your adjustment right there while you're closest to the surface to make use of the Oberth effect. Yes, I have been studying my physics. Actually, you know what? I believe I started wrong. We're already 6 minutes and 30 seconds into this, and I've been telling you more about the mods than I have about myself, and you're probably curious, who is this masked man? Why is he talking behind a microphone, and why should we stay and watch this? Well, let me tell you something, Sunny and/or what's the female version of Sunny? Sunny and/or Sammy. Sunny and/or Sammy. One of the two. I am not quite sure. If you are a female, do not feel discriminated against. You are equal in my heart to all the men who are watching this as well. You are all fantastic people, and under the Kerbal flag, we settle colonies and such as equals. Yes, there we go. Fantastic. I have already broken gender disparity. So with these first few launches, I've just been going all over the biomes of Kerbin, collecting science and such, and making rounds of all the science I can have on Kerbin before having to leave, of course, to go to the moon. But, of course, about myself. Now, my age, yes, because this is usually the make or break for YouTube. If you're not quite at the ranges of puberty yet, you may have a squeaker voice. I hate to call it a squeaker. Or you may have voice cracks quite often, which is not a problem. I've seen respectable people on YouTube who suffer from both of those. However, it's usually one of those things that is not, well, you don't go very far on YouTube unless you're a laughing stock if you have voice cracks and you're not quite the fits of puberty quite yet, unfortunately. However, I am 16 years old. I am a junior in high school, and the reason I am playing Kerbal Space Program for all of you is because I really have an interest in physics. Yes, you may be asking yourself, you sir must be drab to have an interest in physics. Well, that may be the truth, but at the same time, I enjoy commentating, so I guess I've proved my social capabilities to all of you, but physics is one of my interests in a career possibility. Now, I don't know if I'll ever become an astrophysicist. That would be quite interesting. That math will definitely deprecate my soul. However, I am interested in pursuing physics in one way or another, and I have taken physics so far. If that's my proving grounds right there. I have taken physics at one point, so I have minimalistic idea of what I'm doing, you know, calculating for delta V and all that such, but to maintain an audience and to make sure people don't get too upset or confused of using hardcore mathematics with mu and all. Mu is my favorite Greek letter. I don't know what your favorite Greek letter is, but mu is the U with the tail on it that's used in physics. It's, you know, gravitational acceleration, that kind of stuff, and in certain formulas, for example, solving for your semi-major axis, you can use mu in place of some variables just to make it simple and give a bit of an overview. However, I remember here, from our first launch, we were unable to plant a flag because we did a splashdown, a nice splashdown, nothing broke, thankfully, and this is our first flag right here. We've got to make it special. We've got to make a message that inspires Kerbals and fellow Kerbonauts for ages to come. So I believe we did that. However, I am watching this from quite a small window in Sony Vegas, so to accurately see everything that I'm attempting to record here is probably not a good idea. That's also the reason I will admit why I haven't been saying the specific amounts of science that I've been reaping, as I am physically unable to read them because my monitor right here that I'm reading this off of is quite tiny. Much like the fellow Kerbonaut who we sent out in this Mark II can. Relatively insignificant to the universe, however, the changes he'll make by standing on the moon and Minmus and Duna and Ike and Jewel and all the rest will make quite the significance right here. And I do know why I was scrolling my mouse around that number right there. If you want to go back and take a look why, I'm sure you'll understand immediately. However, we are now able to make a dent into our science tree. Now you're probably wondering, what in the world is this if you've never seen Kerbal Space Program before? Well, if you're a veteran of KSP, this screen right here is quite new. It's career mode. It's something new and it's fantastic to say at the least. Now, career mode was added by 0.22, that version coming out. When did that come out? It was not over summer, if I don't believe. When I was playing over the summer, I don't remember seeing career mode, but it came around a little bit ago. But this is version 0.23, which institutes the new remodeled science system, the Rapier engine, the science lab, some other great stuff, and some mods have updated. I've been waiting for some of those, hence the reason this series is probably oddly timed for some of you, if that's even a factor. It may be now that I mentioned it. However, I did wait for a lot of the mods to be updated, most notably Kerbal Engineer and that kind of stuff. That's not being used in this episode, however, those kind of orbital calculations really help for going out to Duna and making precise calculations for phase angles and ejection angles and all that stuff. More so than the maneuver node system can. It just tells you everything you can use before you actually have to press map mode and see everything that you've got. So I just wanted to make it easy in this first episode, go through and do a speed run of all the science, as I have done this quite a few times, and I am a veteran of the Kerbal system. I have landed on every planet and every moon at least once, not necessarily returning, but I have landed on every one, regardless. Now, I get asked sometimes, or at least I was asked at least once, so I can say without a doubt I've been asked before, what's the hardest place to land on in KSP? Now, since I'm not a respected dignitary from the KSP community quite yet, I hope to be soon. I certainly plan on earning that title. I want to be there someday. I want to be one of the KSP juggernauts. I want to be Herman Kerman. You know, obviously a play on Herman Oberth, who made a significant dent in astrodynamics and such. I guess that's my Kerbal name right there. And go into the Kerbalizer and I will be Herman Kerman, seeing as though Werner von Kerman was already taken. Sadly enough, but I was actually doing a report for my calculus class for, I was doing on Werner von Kerman. We had to pick a mathematician, and I picked I'm going to say Werner von Kerman. This is going to be tough. Werner von Braun, the first off Nazi rocket scientist who turned American and helped land men on the moon with his Saturn V rockets. However, before doing that, he was with the Nazis, and he was doing the first militarized rocket tests, most notably the V2. But before the V2, there was the A4 and the A10, which was a smaller version of the V2 that's more infamous and more known at, Pennismund and Kummersdorf. There's two places in Germany where his rocket bases were with his team, and they were in Prussia, and they were doing some good work with the rockets. Not necessarily good, but they were militarized rockets, the first rockets to enter space. They were not manned, of course. These were militarized rockets that were loaded with a warhead, but they did touch. There we go, they touched. They touched the edges of the atmosphere and went to space for some time before coming down and slamming into London, most notably. That's where Werner von Braun's famous quote, "I send missiles to the moon, but sometimes I hit London." It's something like that. I may have done a gross simplification of the quote, but it's something along those lines. And regardless, I was doing a report on him, and I got to read up on a lot of physics stuff, and I actually was able to say with a straight face, not lying to anyone, that by playing Kerbal Space Program, I am actually doing research. Yes, I am calculating delta V, and I am making sure these gravitational constants and everything is validity. It's validity proof, or it's validity. It has grounding, but we're in space. There is no ground. Alright, you technicalitist. Oh man, I am butchering my words. Usually when I commentate, I just like to have fun and, just sit around in my chair and spin a little bit and just talk about whatever comes to mind, which is the best part about commentating for me, which is just being able to talk a lot and have a bunch of people hear you. Or maybe in some cases not a lot of people hear you, but you may think so. Anyways, back to Werner von Braun. The paper, it was a fun paper to write, actually. I really do enjoy writing papers at times. I'm just a sociable person. I enjoy writing and talking a lot. But writing this paper was relatively new territory for me. Now, I already mentioned that I enjoy physics off the bat. I all physics isn't all that fun to me, like the thermodynamics stuff. That stuff's not the best. However, my favorite stuff about physics is the orbital mechanics. That, astrodynamics, astronautics, that kind of stuff. Traveling in space, leaving atmospheres, entering different gravity wells, and that kind of stuff with regards to physics interests me so much, and doing this paper on Wernher von Braun was somewhat of an honor. I was able to learn, and I was able to, you know, fresh up on my physics that I will soon be taking another course on, AP Physics. Hopefully that's fun. But I'm really glad that I was able to do the paper because I got to learn a lot about him, and I learned more about space because of it. And with his Saturn V rockets, Wernher von Braun, when he was doing the Apollo program with NASA, before he was with the Mercury and Gemini programs, he was doing the Redstone rocket tests and the Pershing missile tests under the U.S. Navy. But when he moved his sights to non-ballistic missiles and to man-carrying translunar injection-capable crafts, well, that came time to send man to the moon on Apollo 11. And with Apollo 11 and the Apollo missions following that, I believe every Apollo mission was launched with a Wernher von Braun rocket. There was the Saturn V, which was the biggest rocket that sent men to the moon on all Apollo missions after Apollo 11. So Apollo 11 all the way to 17, which were all moon landing missions. But before then, there was the Saturn IB, the Saturn V, and there's one more that I'm forgetting right now. I may have to open up my paper right now and read that off really quickly. You know what? I'm going to do that real quick. Let me open up my paper in Word. It's actually the first paper I have right here. Wernher von Braun. I believe this was a 10-page paper. Not one of my bests. I'm usually one who can write quite a lot. Oh, man. It's the Saturn IB. It's the Saturn V. But anyways, all of the man launches to the moon after Apollo 11 were launched with Saturn V rockets. Now, I'm looking through here real quick. Ah, yes, he has a PhD in physics. No doubt about it. Now, if I had a Control-F function here, I'm sure there is one, but I can't bother myself looking up. All right, so we have the Saturn 1, the IB, and the Saturn V. There we go. The 3 Saturn rockets, and they are launched, or they were ordered in power, so how far they could go with regards to delta V change. So, that paper, once again, very fun to write as I just enjoy physics and learning about Wernher von Braun, one of the pioneers of rocketry, and, you know, one of the guy and his team who developed the rockets that were able to send men to the moon, which is just such a fascinating thing to me. I don't understand, you know, sometimes passions just work the way they do, and interests are unexplainable, yet to one person they may seem and make sense. However, the moon and astrophysics, that stuff is me. I really enjoy it so much. I'm telling you my passions right here because I trust all of you with my passions, and even if you were to take them and blackmail me with them for whatever reason, this guy likes the moon. Okay, I guess that's okay. You don't want to make fun of him? I mean, the moon's okay, I guess. And yeah, so the moon, I have a telescope. It's a telescope that was given to me by my father for one of my earlier birthdays, and whenever there's a full moon, you can find me out on my porch just looking out on a cold winter night when we've had the most full moons, which has been fantastic. Just all that stargazing. And looking on the moons, I told my mother one day when I was a child, I said, "Mom, one day I'm going to get a telescope powerful enough so I can see the Apollo 11 flag." And she said, "Well, okay, I guess you can do that." And I'm still in the search for that telescope. I don't know if I'll come across one for quite a while, but that is a promise I made to my mother, and I will find the Apollo 11 flag. But the moon and traveling in space is one of those things that fascinates me, and I'm unable to explain it other than the fact that we are just so small in a big and, from what we've heard, an ever-expanding universe. So it's something along the lines of our minimalistic impact on what the universe truly is that I find so mesmerizing, and I really want to find out more and maybe even discover something if I'm capable of doing so later in my years of pursuing physics and such. So that's just something I really enjoy. And Kerbal Space Program, when I first found it, I thought, oh wow, this is just probably a little space game. Let's launch a couple of rockets, go to the moon, come back, and say la 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 la, let's build a telescope and do it again. Because what's the point of science if you can't do it again? But this game turned out to be a whole lot more, and with the mods, it's very expandable. You can get the Planet Factory mod, having even more planets to land on, and it is an ever-expanding game, not to mention that updates are being put in monthly after monthly, and it's a good system, and I really enjoy this game. And in part, writing papers, just pursuing physics a little bit on my own time, and then actually taking courses in high school, coupled with KSP, which has made physics fun for me, which has made space travel very interesting to me, and it's also provided somewhat of a reachable aspiration for me. I'm able to do some basic math and send things to the moon and do stuff like that, and I just really enjoy it. It's one of those things, man. Everybody has their things. Some people enjoy, I don't know, debating. I also enjoy debating. I really want to do some debating in my days, you know, just talk and shoot down ignorance and that kind of stuff. I'm a very talkative person, which is why commentating and me, we get together very well. I'm able to talk for long amounts of time without saying or taking a break, and just feel comfortable with many people I don't know. I'm very easy to get along with, and I can talk to you for days if given the proper topic. So that's something, and if you decide to stick around, which I hope you will, this is my first impression here, so if I've interested you in any way whatsoever, I hope you'll stick around. And I've neglected to commentate about this video whatsoever, simply because it's the first preliminary parts of career mode in KSP, that being earning the littlest things that you can, the basic science, getting solar panels, and just the littlest things to break Kerbin gravity well, and, you know, go onto an escape trajectory type of stuff. So I feel if you've found yourself here that you're probably already a veteran of KSP and you've been looking for something specific, and for whatever reason my video popped up on the search engine and you're here now, and I'm glad to have you here. But I assume you're already a veteran, so if you're not, I apologize. Hopefully you're watching very closely, as I was not backing up with my speech. But with the future episodes where I'll be talking about where I have more access to my mods, I'll be updating mods and doing such like that, making this series more interesting and more interactable for you guys. That sounded strange. Anyways, I do like introducing submitted crafts from you guys. Anyone who suggests a craft to me and puts it on KSP Spaceport or a forum or such, I'll download it, demonstrate it, and see what it can do. And I just really enjoy making a series interactive and nonetheless fun for everybody who watches it, while, you know, having a little bit of an educational background, because KSP is not like your typical game of the, I don't know, 21st century, if you want to call it. Most first-person shooters and such do violence and stuff like that. Now, I will admit, I do like playing Battlefield and Call of Duty from here to there, but whenever I feel like it's a rainy day right now, which is my favorite type of day, and I just feel like talking or, you know, reserving that special place where I just like to do math and play games that support that, well, KSP is atop my list, and this is a game that is, no, I wouldn't say completely non-violent, because Jebediah does enjoy blowing stuff up and all, but I feel it's educational nevertheless, and therefore fun and healthy game to play. Now, for this last mission here, I'll actually try and commentate the video this time instead of telling you everything about myself, which I'm sure you're finished of hearing. So we're going to the poles in this mission, and as I mentioned earlier on, every biome on Kerbin and the moon has different science which can be held. That being, there's desert biomes, there's ice biomes, there's grasslands, mountains, the launch pad even on Kerbin, to where you can get unique science, and then you can transmit it back and get some science for it. Likewise with the moon, there are various and sundry other biomes. There's the poles, there's Northwest Crater, there's Twin Craters, there is the plains, there's highlands. What else is there? There's some trenches here and there, but I don't know if those count as anything. And then, you know, they all have their respected synonymistic nature with the landing sites of Apollo and such. Now, when I do get around to the point of Apollo launching rockets to the moon, which I've already recorded and I have that ready to go, I'll probably start that right after this. However, when I do get there, I did try and mirror what the Apollo missions did, but I did find a very big problem. I started with Apollo 11, that being the first mission that landed on the moon. However, we must not forget that there were Apollo missions before that did not land on the moon. However, they were sent on a translunar injection, encountered the moon, and made an orbit around the moon, to where they did some studies while above the surface. However, not landing, these men were not the first on the moon, for Neil Armstrong was. However, nevertheless, we have to remember that they did a good thing. They were out there and they were helping us find out what was going on with the moon and such. I don't want to go into specifics quite yet. I'll be able to talk quite a lot about that while I am doing some commentating for the episodes where we do some Apollo-esque stuff. But for now, we are stuck to Kerbin. We are traveling around getting science, and, well, this last launch right here is quite special. You see right here, we have unlocked the new science module, the Science Junior. And the Science Junior introduces a new way to get more lucrative science to spend on parts and such. So right here we are going over the poles, which is its own independent biome, which provides its own independent science source to give us more parts to spend in the tech tree, where we always want to spend our Kerbin official bitcoins, other known as science. But there's something special about this right here. Now this is this typical deorbiting procedure. We weren't even in an orbit, but I just wanted to slow down to make sure I landed in the poles, so I wouldn't be on an edge and get it caught on the grasslands or something, because I don't want to have to walk with Jebediah. That takes some time. But what happens? I skipped through the typical re-entry part, even though it does look fantastic. Our science module breaks, as you can see right here. I think we have science, but no. Boom. That's it. But that's all for this first episode of Interstellar Odyssey. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Feel free to stay tuned and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more Interstellar Odyssey. But I'm Dylan, and I will see you all very soon.